Ready when you are. Oh,
Have you checked? We are in position.
Well, yeah, I might be slightly out to move forward.
Okay. Action.
Good morning. Happy Sunday.
Nearly afternoon.
I've got 15 minutes.
Yeah. Good morning. Welcome to episode 3.
Check us out.
I know, it's actually getting going. TVs and positivity. So episode 3 theme is going to be all around handling difficult life situations, how to position your mindset to potentially prepare for them or maybe deal with things that have already happened. And we're going to be talking a little bit about some of the things that's happened to Amy across her life.
Yeah, it's quite a vulnerable episode for me actually, because I'm quite an open book and I will talk to people close to me about things, but I tend to just talk about things when people ask rather than divulge a lot about myself. And I'm also just going to be mindful because some of the things that I'm going to talk about today, they do affect other people, so I'm not going to go too much into some of them because, for starters, with my family stuff that I'm going to talk about, our number one fan is my mum, so that obviously will affect her as well. So yeah, I'm just going to be mindful of other people's kind of feelings while we talk about stuff as well. So yeah, where should we start?
So just before we go into that, on the last episode, I think we spoke about setting little challenges or like tasks that people could try just to help with different mindset things and helping them feel positive. So one of the things we'd said was about writing down, I think it was 3 things that you're grateful for, whether it be mentally writing them down or actually on paper. I think we promoted that was like the best way, if it was morning, evening, but just to really get into that mindset of what is good about your life, what you are actually grateful for. So it would be interesting if anybody did that, just to kind of comment, like let us know how you were getting on.
Because again, we were talking about how that conditions your unconscious mind to look for those things to be grateful for. So we hope people have managed to do that over the past 2 weeks.
Yeah.
How long it's been?
It's mad how much your unconscious mind is the reason that you might feel sad, happy, different emotions, and often people can have different emotions that they might try and cover up because it might not be like normal, or they might feel like they don't want to share that maybe they're feeling sad and they'll pretend to people that they'll be really happy. But I think there's something as well that we wanted to chat about today called toxic positivity, which was where if you are literally trying to be 100% positive all of the time, you're probably going to end up feeling like you are holding in a lot of emotion that you're not letting go, and that could also have a really bad effect in the longer run. So it's okay to not feel happy 100% of the time. I don't think it's really normal for humans to feel like literally 100%. And if you didn't have those other emotions, then that would be more of an issue. So,
and I think naming that emotion as well, because people's go-to tends to be, I'm happy, I'm sad, or I'm angry. But actually, usually it is deeper than that, and it could be that you're feeling overwhelmed or there's a different emotion. So, but that actually leads really nicely. I wasn't sure what order I was going to do things in.
Yeah, I wanted to link that one in. I was trying to, then when we get into the life issues and stuff, I wanted to then talk about how it's good to actually recognise what the emotion is that you feel, because it can be really overwhelming when life crisis has hit and you might not really understand what that emotion is at first. So it's good to have a good understanding of your own mind and practice understanding your own mind, really, to cope with like knowing what actual your emotions are telling you.
Yeah. And when you were saying about how it kind of can manifest in your body if you're, or the longer term effects of things, I think I'm a prime example of how that can happen. I mean, when people speak to me, or they always say, you know, you're so happy, and that's how I've always been viewed, but it hasn't come without its challenges. And I think sometimes when I'm a bit off, people don't really understand why, or, you know, even think that I have those days, which I obviously do. But I, for a long time, masked a lot of things that were going on for me. So I had quite tricky start in terms of relationships. Relationships have always been quite negative for me, and I don't know whether that's talk about romantic relationships here, by the way. I don't know whether that's because I'm quite a healing person and I like to help people. So I don't know whether that is one of the reasons why that happens. But yeah, for a long time, my relationships were like that. And then it got to a point where, a lot of the time things that were said to me weren't very nice. And that had obviously was quite deep rooted. And then it got to the point where everything got on top of us. And I woke up one morning, I was going on holiday with my best friend from home. God love her, Jess. Shit, I put up with a lot. And I was in the house sorting out all of my holiday stuff. My friend Alex was there. And I'm so grateful that he was there. And we talk about this all the time, but in terms of his reaction. But I went like that with my hair, and I just had a massive bald patch on the front of my head. And I think you only saw the fall for the first time when we were out on Sunday, because we were chatting about
Yeah,
it.
I'd heard about it. You showed me the image.
Yeah. And I just looked in the mirror and I was like, I've lost my hair. And at the time I had blonde hair. So it was very, very noticeable. And I just started to cry. And he just looked at us and he went, Amy, if it's good enough for Brittany, it's good enough for you. And I mean, that was probably the perfect thing, because for me, I don't always cope that well with the unknowns, or I never used to cope very well with the unknown. So all I knew was I woke up, I had this giant patch on my head. I didn't know where it had come from. I didn't know anything about it, to be honest. So then I was in this moment of laughing, crying, just didn't really know what was going on. Yeah. So I initially had thought it was because I had my hair done, because I had my hair dyed. So straight away I messaged the hairdresser, sent her a photo and just said, is this off the dye and what has happened? I don't understand. And she replied straight away saying, here we go and see your doctor, because I think you might have alopecia. And I'd never heard of alopecia before. But when I say it had come out from the root, so there wasn't even the little bits of hair, it was completely bald. So it wasn't like the hair had snapped. So I thought, right, well, I was going on holiday, I was driving back to Sunderland, I didn't have the time to go to the GP. So I drove back to Sunderland. My mum had been out and bought us like headbands and scarves and stuff to put on me on holiday so that I could hide it. Because going back to the stuff around relationships, one of the things that had always been said to me was things around like you're ugly, you're fat, you're horrible, who else would ever want you, those kind of things. So when I was going on holiday, and my first thought was, oh, people are just going to be really focused on this and I'm not going to feel nice, and it's just not going to be a pleasant experience. And I was going away with Jess, who she can bring light to most situations. So we went on holiday, still not really knowing what hell I was going to do about this situation. And she would say things to us like, "Oh, Amy, your patch is going a bit red. Do you want us to cream it for you?" So she'd be sitting putting suntan lotion on my head. And I was actually going topless on holiday, and she rang us from the balcony because she could see us, and she just, I remember answering the phone. She was like, Amy, I just wanted to say, don't worry, because while you're lying there, I don't think anyone's going to be looking at your bald patch. So again, she
Stop reminding me it's in there.
she made like real light of it, which
Yeah,
which
got
very
to
much
try.
helped me, because we were only 2 days
Not taking
into
it too seriously. Yeah.
yeah. So then when I got back, I went to the doctors and thought, like, well, at least then I'll know what's going on, and that will help the situation. So we went to see the GP, and quite frankly, she was awful. And I've refused to see her since, because it was just, I went in, I was talking to her, I was crying, and she said to us, "Oh, it's alopecia." I was like,
Did they test for that?
no.
They just assumed.
They just know from
Okay.
kind of, because it comes in, for me, there's 3 different types. I think there's 3 different types. And the alopecia that I have, it goes in patches. So I didn't know that at the time. But yeah, so she could tell from the look of it. I did go and see a trichologist after, which was a hair specialist who I actually randomly met on a night out. Say randomly, say there's no such thing as a coincidence. And I went to his clinic in Manchester where he did what he needed to do, and he said to me, your hair will never grow back. I can do a treatment, it's £2,000, but it's a preventative treatment just to hopefully stop you losing any more of your hair. Because what happens is your blood cell sees your hair follicles as a foreign body and attacks. So there's 3 causes of alopecia, and it's hereditary, which isn't the case for me because no one in my family has hair loss. Medication, was on no medication, or stress. Now, for me, I have a really high tolerance for stress, and I don't always know when I'm stressed. You know, my work life, I'm working in an environment where you're dealing with stressful situations day in, day out. You're dealing with crisis day in, day out. So your tolerance is quite high for stress. So, digressed a bit. So when I went to the doctor, she said, oh, it's just a bit of hair loss. If I had £1 for every time a woman lost some hair, I'd be rich. She told us nothing about it. She was like, there's nothing it can do. So I left that appointment feeling worse than I had before it. So after I'd seen the trichologist, he'd said, it's £2,000 for this preventative treatment. And I said, okay, well, I've got private health through work, so, great. And he said, oh, no, you can't use private health because it's classed as a cosmetic treatment. So I was like, okay, well, I'm not paying £2,000 to get a treatment that isn't going to solve, 1, the problem that I've got right now, and 2, is not really it may or may not prevent it. So it was going to be a lot of appointments I didn't know what the outcome was going to be. So I then said, right, I did dwell on it, and I was, not in a great place about my hair, because it's a very, very strange feeling going to bed and not knowing whether you're going to have hair the next day. And I found that really, really difficult to come to terms with, because I'm not somebody who is massively focused on my appearance, but I think for a woman, your hair is your crown.
Yeah, you can't just ignore that.
Yeah, absolutely. And there were so many times I would FaceTime my mum when I got home from work, from the car, crying, because on my drive home, by the time I got home, there was just loads of hair, like, on my legs. If I was wearing tights, you could just see all my hair. So it was a really, really difficult time.
How long did that go on?
It still goes on now. It comes and goes. So it just depends. It really does. If I go through a really challenging period, so, which I will come on to, but around my Uncle Gary, I tend to be quite in tune with my body. So when something like that happens, and I know I've gone through something that I've really had to process, usually within a month or 2, I will have a patch somewhere. But I can usually hide it, if I'm honest. When I say hide it, it would usually be on my hairline. So either on the front here, never as big as the first time. First time I had a patch here, and a patch there. So yeah, if I go through something really stressful, I tend to know a month or 2 later there may be something. But to be honest, I no longer look. So it would only be if I did something with my hair and I felt it, because it's very smooth when you feel it. So you would feel it if you had your hands in your head. But I tend to not look for it, and if it happens now, it happens. And I tend to, if it happens now, I tend to post about it, and there's a reason for that. So it wasn't easy, don't get us wrong, and I remember going away with my mum because she really struggled, because she knew how much I was hurting, and because it was so known to me, I didn't know how to deal with it. So I kept thinking, well, what do I do? What do I do? And then I thought to myself one day, right, we've got 2 options here. You can either continue with how you are, which I wasn't feeling very good about myself. All of those thoughts were coming back in it. Oh, well, even when I had hair, people didn't like me, or people behaved in this particular way when I was in a relationship or whatever. So what chance have I got if I don't have any hair? you know, all of those thoughts just kept coming and kept coming and it was making it worse. And then I stopped and I was like, right, you've got to find a way to deal with this. How do you know you deal with situations? And the one thing I know that always helps me is if I can find a purpose to something that is happening to me, figure out what it is teaching me, and then use it to help other people, then I know that I can get through that situation. So then I decided to do that work around that and actually get things really deep rooted in us, that actually how I look is the least important thing. I know we said that during the last podcast. And there was someone very close to me, and again, don't know whether she would want me to say, so I will just keep who it is private, but she has alopecia and she really, really struggles with it. So I thought, okay, well, let's get to a point where I'm okay with this and that I accept this for part of who I am, really, and let's just embrace it. So I stopped hiding it. I would wear my hair up. I wouldn't hide from the fact that I had this bald patch, and I was like, I'm just going to use it to encourage other people to just be themselves. And I can remember starting on that, obviously after I'd done the work. Sounds very easy. It's a lot more complicated than how I'm making it sound. But I can remember the first time I posted about it and about how I was feeling about it and where I was in terms of how positive I was feeling and about the things that I was going to do with it. And she messaged me. And getting that message off her was just everything. You know, and me and her talk about it. Every time I have a flare up, we will talk about it. Because as soon as I post about it, she tends to message me about it. So yeah, just kind of embrace that, and it did grow back. My hair, I was told it would never grow
So
back.
anytime there is a bald patch, it does tend to grow back.
Mine, yeah. Even though I was told it wouldn't,
Amazing.
but mine does.
And
I,
go on.
I was going to say, it does make me laugh because I would always say, it doesn't go in the places that you want it to go. Like if I could have alopecia and pick for it to be my armpits and I never had to shave my armpits again, fantastic. Or imagine not having to defluff before you get your time off the show. It's fantastic, but no, it is always on my head.
I mean, the reason you said about before, there being a good reason why you tell people or like post about stuff if it's happened, is that because of the effect you saw it's had on that person.
Yeah.
So you want to just be
I want people
putting
to
stuff out
embrace.
to make sure that everybody who could be helped from reading that would feel better.
Yeah, or even if because when people message me, I will talk to them about what's going on and we'll say, you know, unpick with them what is difficult and tell them things that I've done that have helped me. Because if that can help them, then great. That it gives me so much joy to be able to help people. So yeah, that is why I do promote it when it happens.
And really learning like from it, and how much you have obviously clearly learned from it, is helping you with any other life things that come up.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think you can then use those skills that you've got in any other area of your life when things happen. And I think for me, where I did a lot of my work, and I'm sorry to anybody who had a really difficult period during COVID, but COVID for me was that moment where I could actually just stop. Because up until that point, I'd been a chronic people pleaser. We talk about this all the time. I would do it at the detriment to myself, where I knew I was pouring from an empty cup and I was doing things that I didn't want to do just to make other people happy. And I remember saying, stop the world, I want to get off. You know, I just need some time. And then COVID happened. And if somebody had said to me at the beginning of COVID, you're going to live alone for 2 years and not speak to people, I would have been like, what? But actually, it turned everything around for me, because I had that period of time where when people wanted something from us, because that's what you'd find when you're a chronic people pleaser, people will come to you when it benefits them, not actually caring what you've got going on, but just expecting you to give. And that's what I used to do. So COVID was really good because nobody could ask me to do things for them. So then I developed this thing, right, I'm not prepared to do this at a detriment to myself. So when the world reopened, I had those boundaries in place where I would help people, of course, but if I couldn't, or I was doing something for myself, or I had stuff to work through for myself and what was going on for me, I was in a position to say to people, I actually can't help you right now.
Yeah.
So, and you know, things are about give and take, aren't they? And with my friends, you guys would know, I would drop anything to help you guys. I have no issue with that. But if it's somebody who only pops up when they need something, I'm sorry, but no.
So you would recommend to anyone really
Have
to try and
boundaries.
have more boundaries with what you
100%.
give to other people.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, your close friends, your family, like
Yeah,
we're
would drop
gonna give
everything.
anything. But I think there's a lot of people, including like me in the past, who would just drop everything for anybody.
Yeah.
Really.
Yeah. And I do think there is an element of you teach people how to treat you.
Mm-hmm.
And if you don't have those boundaries, people who don't have the right intentions, you know, people who aren't very nice will thrive from that because they can take what they want from you without having to give anything back. And you don't do things for people to get things back in return. But what I mean by it is those people who don't have the right intentions, they're first of all not people you need in your life and aren't going to help you on that journey to get where you want to go. And you can't pour from an empty cup. So give to the people who are the right people for you.
So when you overcome things and you started to go from being really upset and stressed about the situation to learning to live with it, like, do you have any tips? Like, how did you get to that point? Like, what kind of things did you tell yourself? What kind of things did you do? If there was anything that you could say that other people could try to think about.
So I didn't have a clue what worked for me, to be honest. Like I said, before COVID, I just ran around like a headless chicken from morning till night. So I never really had that time to sit down and process things. So the things that I did, first of all, like I said, about the comments that I'd had made to me for 10 plus years from numerous relationships, I really had to unpick that. So I spent a lot of time looking at, okay, how do I feel about myself as a person? What past trauma do I need to heal from? And there were really quite significant things that had happened that I knew I needed to heal from. And along with that, I carried a lot of guilt for what I'd put my family through in terms of my mum watching me become somebody that I wasn't and just wanted me to kind of come through the other side of that. And we're talking when I was a lot younger, 16, 17. And I carried a lot of guilt around that. And I still think about that now. There's certain conversations that I can remember having that I just never wanted to put them through that. But I was so consumed by the relationship that I was in and the effect that had had on me. And it's not something that happens overnight. It's something that happens over months and months and months of those things being pulled out of you, and who you are, just you see it happen. And I see it happen to people now. So I'd unpicked a lot around that, and I had to let go of the guilt that I had, which my mum would never want me to feel guilty for that. But yeah, did a lot of work around my own self-confidence and the belief that I had in myself and about who I knew I was, because I know how much I've got to give to people, and I give a lot to people. If I like you, I'll give you me all. So I really had to unpick. That was about them, not about me.
Yeah.
It wasn't about who I was as a person. I didn't see myself as fat, as ugly, as all of the things that I was told that I was. So yeah, I did a lot of that. Journaling, I started to, again, get that out. Sometimes I'd rip the paper up after because, again, that's a proven way to get it out.
Yeah.
So I would write down how I was feeling and then get rid of it. I tried yoga because it was COVID. Everybody did yoga. Yoga I like, but I'm not the most flexible person in the world. So it's not something I do regularly, but I know for a lot of people that has a really positive impact on them. Meditation, I tried, didn't sit with us properly. And I don't know whether that was because I was at the beginning of my journey, because now, I meditate every morning, and whether that's just a 5 minute practice or a 10 minute practice. I tend to just take that time to breathe and regulate my nervous system, especially if something is going on, because, like I say, I'm quite in tune with my body and I know if I'm triggered by something. So I'm able to do those breathing exercises and do a bit of meditation just to bring me down a little bit. And it was slightly more difficult in COVID, but having that support network around you, so having people that you can talk to about it. And even now, if someone wants to talk to me about what I've been through, I could learn something from that conversation that I
Yeah.
hadn't really thought
Yes.
about
And
previously.
when you then say it, even yourself thinks, oh, well, I must think that because I've just said
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I agree. So if you
Yeah.
have close people that you talk to, I think that's just as effective as journaling, because I think the purpose of journaling really is to get to the root of what you're thinking and then unpick why you're thinking it. If you do have people that are close to you that you trust and that you can explain stuff, you can find out stuff just from chatting that then you might not have thought about in yourself, but naturally when it just flows out, you think, oh well, I've explained that in a way that I kind of think I understand it better myself now.
Yeah.
I used to do that with my grandma, so we'd go and she used to just sit and listen, and I'd just blah, 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 and then I'd leave and I'd have like all these like amazing realizations of stuff, thinking, oh well, I know how I feel about that situation now, whether it might be I was talking about a relationship, an issue I had with anything. I kind of felt better after I spoke about it. So yeah, couldn't really recommend more talking. That is the purpose of journaling, because not everybody has somebody to talk to, and you probably wouldn't sit and just talk to yourself literally, but that is like an output of getting it on paper.
And I think it's one of the things for me is about accepting that it is okay to be vulnerable. I mean, I really struggled with that because I had my vulnerabilities. Anytime I was vulnerable, and again, we're talking about specific relationships here, but that when I was vulnerable, that was used against us. So learning to find the right people, that when you are vulnerable, that people then are caring rather than using it against you. Yeah. And that can be such a difficult thing to do. Such a difficult thing to do because you have that fear of vulnerability. And I think having the right people around you where you can do that. I mean, I'm extremely lucky. I've got you, I've got Gabby. My mum and dad are amazing, and my family support network. I could talk to them about anything. But I think it's about finding those people that you can actually sit there and bare your soul to them and be like, this is what's happened to me, this is what I'm trying to deal with, or this is what is going on for me. Because again, there will be things that over the years, even when you've done the work, will trigger you, and you have to be able to say to people,
like, there's no big like fix to anything in particular. Like there's always going to be a small part of you that's still triggered by stuff, but it's been able to then recognize it and understanding your emotion, which is what I was saying before about 100%. Unpicking like what it is that you're feeling, and trying to actually feel it and not cover it up, because I think when you cover up how you really feel it and you're telling people like, yeah, I'm fine, or you're even convincing yourself that you're fine, I think that's really when you just end prolonging the damage even more.
Oh, and don't get me wrong, there was days when I was at work and I would get in the car and I will be crying in the car, get to my visit, and then you've got to have your poker face on.
Got to have a job, you've got to have a professional face, you've got to people who you don't want to like let your guard down, like people that in fact might be your friends, but you might not even have time to like going into the details. You're gonna have this poker face, as you say, with some things.
And you have to feel it. Like my biggest advice to anybody would be, feel it. You've got to go through it to get to the other side of it, and it is painful and it is hard, and there are things that happen in life where you just think, oh, why? And you've got to feel that, and you've got to come through the other side of it.
Don't go around it. Go through it. Like
absolutely,
the only way around is through. And it's quicker to get there that way as well. So
and find people who sit in the mud with you.
But
you know, they'll sit there with you until it passes. This won't work for everybody, but what works for me, because again, I can deal with things quite quicker, well, much quicker now, but I have to feel it. So, and I give myself that full day, full evening.
Yeah.
If
And just accept that you're not feeling great that day.
Yeah. So if I wake up, I do gratitude on the morning. I do a bit of meditation. I do some journaling, and I always try to have those things at the forefront of my mind. But there are days where, you know, whether it's hormones, whether it's whatever, you just can't really shift that feeling of meh. You know, like it's a meh day.
Yeah.
You're
It's
okay,
the
but
energy.
it's just, yeah,
Well, I'm not being all wishy-washy, but there is something that like is to be said about like the energies from all the planets and how they're moving around the system. And I love astrology, so I just love all of the science. It's not actually just wishy-washy, it's actual science, you know. The moon and the gravity, it moves tides, it does affect your energy, and it does affect how you might feel at certain times of like the year, the month, whatever it might be.
And I think it's about having compassion for yourself in those times.
Yeah, and
It's not being
it's
like
normal that
have
I
to be
do.
happy all the time.
Yeah. So I think having that like toxic positivity.
You don't have to be happy all the time. Oh.
Yeah, it's more of an issue if you are literally just pretending that you are not accepting the emotion.
Yeah. And if you struggle to talk to people, find that one person, message me. I with work, you know, people can talk to me. I'm saying if I have the capacity, I will help.
Millions of messages
Yeah.
now.
But no, I just think when there's something really significant, you've got to feel it.
You've got to talk about it, even if that's on a piece of paper to yourself.
Yeah.
That is the best way to literally understand what is that emotion, what am I actually feeling. And it's only when you actually begin to understand yourself that you can then fix it. Like, how can you fix something that you don't even understand what's wrong?
Yeah.
It's impossible.
Definitely. And I think you can't do that without going into it. So you can't just think I'm angry.
Avoid it because then it feels hard.
It's painful
to actually sit and think I'm really upset, because people just pretend that they don't want to be upset. So let's just shut that off in Pandora's box. And a lot of issues stem from people's childhoods where they've done that as a child. And as a child, you will naturally protect yourself and you will put things in boxes that then create people's personality, I suppose, later down the line.
Your brain
the way
protects
they react, it does. The way that you react to stuff now is linked with some sort of like past experience, because everybody's brains are built off past experiences. It's science. It's not just like wishy-washy, but you know, things that happen in people's lives is then what shapes their future actions. Like the brain is so clever. If something bad happens one time, when that happens again, your brain will think twice and defend itself.
Yeah. If anybody wants to learn more about that, the chimp paradox is excellent.
I've never read that.
It's
excellent. I know the theory.
It talks about the three systems of
I know the science of how
human.
The brain and how you wire things and it creates connections, and I know all of that, but it's kind of like just you don't need to know all of the science behind it. It's kind of just good to understand that unpicking those past experiences,
reprogramming as well,
can be changed. Like you do not have to be set in that particular mindset. You can change it. You can, like we said on the last podcast, like tune into a different radio station, because the one that you're on, it might not be that great at the moment. So you don't have to stay in that zone. And
it's really difficult because things will keep happening. Like that is life. So like I said to you, COVID was where I did a lot of work on really getting myself into a good place. Now, I had 2 birthdays in COVID, and the last birthday I had was my 30th. And I'm sure some people will already be aware of this, but here we go. 2 days before my 30th birthday, I had a COVID party. And during COVID, I was away from my family, and my uncle was diagnosed with rare form of, I want to say, blood cancer, and he also, his kidneys were failing. So I had gone back when I found out he was coming out of hospital, because it was very, very sudden. Went back to see him and came back to Manchester, and he was doing okay. And then 2 days before my 30th, had a party, and I'd rang home and made sure everything was okay. It was fine. And early hours of the morning, well, I can remember sitting in my living room with my best friend Jess from home and somebody else, and we were talking about him. We were sat early hours in the morning talking about him. Went to bed, and my friend come in my room the next morning. She was like, "You need to answer your phone. Your dad's been trying to get in contact with you." And the second those words came out of her mouth, and I knew straight away. So I rang my dad, and he told us that my uncle had passed away. You know, early hours, not early, well, yeah, must be early hours. I imagine around about the time we were having that conversation. And despite doing all of the work that I'd done on myself, I just felt myself shut down.
You can't just avoid.
Yeah, you can't avoid the grief,
You can't, no.
but I shut myself down, and it was just like, no, not dealing with this. I literally felt like my head and my heart at the same time go, nope. So my cousin, who is living in Manchester, I'm going, my house was a mess, and I had a party. My friend Jess was like tidying up. I was like, "Oh, what are you doing?" She's like, "Well, what are we doing? Are you going back to Sunderland?" And I'm like, "Why would I go back to Sunderland?" I was numb. I was just completely numb, and it was a really difficult period because I didn't feel it for quite some time. And then what started to happen was, when I would ring home, I knew how much people were hurting. And again, being that person who wants to help people when you're 150 mile away, and you know how sad people are. And there was so much, again, not going to go into it, but there was so much going on with it that again, all those things coming together, and you can't do anything. You have zero control over any of it. It was like, okay, well, here we go. What do I do? So I was going out a lot. It was when the Euros were on. Not even a massive football fan, but I was going out, I was drinking, and again, doing things that I just knew weren't really aligned with who I am and what my values are. So then it was like, right, I need to focus. I need some way to channel this grief, but channel it properly and feel it and use it for something positive. So again, I signed up. That was when I first signed up with the coach. And the first time I signed up, it was like, I didn't really have an end goal. So at the very beginning, it was still like, oh, well.
Yeah.
And then I was like, no, I need a goal. We know that this is what I'm good at doing, having a goal, working towards it, having that focus. And as soon as I set my goal, my end date, still hadn't thought about competing or anything at this point. It was a photo shoot. It was like tunnel vision. Everything else disappeared, apart from, I need to work through this and I need to work towards this. And they were my two things. So that just changed everything for me. I was able to process things in a really healthy way. I wasn't drinking, I wasn't doing, there was lots of things that I'd been doing previously that I wasn't, and that focus was on, how do I get better? And it just, like I say, changed everything. And then that all spiraled into competing, and yeah, it just really, really helped us. I had to feel it, I had to go through it. You know, me and my mum would talk openly about things that were going on, but I think when you are in a healthy place or you're working through things, it makes having those conversations easy, because you can be really open then, rather than closing yourself down and not allowing yourself to do it. So we'd sit, we'd talk, we'd cry, we'd laugh. That would be over, FaceTime, because I wasn't where she was. And me and my mum and have moments where we just laugh, but we will also talk about in-depth things, and that comes from both sides. And I think, again, those conversations aren't always easy, even with somebody you are that close with, because they're painful for people. But yeah, I think having a goal and feeling like, finding out what your purpose is and what sets your soul on fire and what just makes you want to be better and give, and just so that helped me. but I just think I have very much had to find out what works for me. The only way you can find that out is by trying different things, because what works for me won't work for everybody else. But actually figuring out what helps and actually doing that really shitty stuff that you've got to do to get there.
Got to go through it.
Got to
Not
go through
around.
it. You have to go through it. So yeah, they're kind of the
Main
big
challenges.
things. Yeah, yeah.
So, what like challenges or tasks do you think we could set people for this episode to help with the life crises?
Yeah. I think importantly remember that crises are always going to happen, and develop those things that keep you afloat when they do. But I would, for me, the tasks that I would do, there will be two. I would identify who you have in your life at the minute, who are going to be your life raft. You know, those
Support
people that you
circle.
can go to when things get tricky.
Yeah, and actually talk to them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I would also try and identify any people that are also dragging you back. Yeah. Because there are some people who don't want to watch you flourish because of how it then makes them feel and how it highlights their insecurities. So find that balance, find out who's there that you want to spend more time with and give to, but also anyone that you maybe need to, I'm not going to say cut out, because not everyone can do that, but distance yourself and protect
not
yourself
need
from.
to like get rid of people completely, but
It's good if you can.
have your own, get out of my life. It's difficult if you've got someone who's been in your life for a while.
Yeah.
Too many connections anyway, so it's just having that barrier that you've got your boundaries yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And the other thing, the other task I would like people to do, and I would really like people to get in contact with us about it, is even just pick one event that you've been through that's been quite challenging in your life and look at what you've learned from it. And I would always approach those situations with not why is this happening to me, but what is this teaching me?
Yes.
Or what am I learning from this? Because once you shift that mindset from like woe is me, this is happening to me, to actually this is happening for me, or what am I learning from this, it will change the way you look at it and change the way you think about it. So yeah, I would like people to maybe look at what they've learned from a challenging situation and what tools they've learned from that.
Yeah,
but
it
above
is
everything,
hard, but-
just be compassionate to yourself. When things are tough, just find things that you can do during your day that give a little bit of self-love back. Spa.
Spa. Yeah, if you had a free spa membership, that would be
Thanks,
great,
James.
but you don't all have
Yeah.
that. But yeah, I think it's really difficult to go back and unpick things. If it's going to trigger you, it might make you feel really uncomfortable to feel that emotion. But I think it does help to understand what that's taught you, what that's actually helped you, or even understanding like how has that thing, that kind of experience, how has that changed like the way I approach things today, or how has that changed the way that the beliefs that I have, the way that I act, is it because of that event? And if it was, ask yourself then, going back in time, like if that event was different, would you think differently? Like, would you want to think differently? Because you don't have to be cemented in that, and whatever it is that's changed your beliefs, that is the reason, or that is the event that's changed your beliefs, and it might not be true.
Yeah. I read a really good book called Soul for Happy, and there was a really interesting thing in that, where it said he would speak to a group full of people and would say, if you think about a really challenging, sad, whatever that event is in your life that happened, if you could take it away, would you? If you could erase it, could you? No, straight away. So many people, most people say, oh yes, yes. And then he will say, okay, if you change that event and anything that had happened that had stemmed from that event, so anything you'd learned, people you'd met, all of those things, if you changed the event and it was going to erase all of those things, would you? And then when people start to unpick that, it's like, actually no. So if I use the example of my uncle, like, would I want my uncle to still be here, 100%, you know. But when you look at all of the things that I've learned and all of the things in my life that have changed from that event. So from that event, I spent that time on myself. I got into bodybuilding. All of those people, all of the people that I've met through that. I mean, that's like saying if that event hadn't happened, me and you wouldn't know each other.
If
You know,
stem
it's-
back to
yeah,
past, even if
yeah.
it's a past relationship that you think, oh, that relationship was really shit, and then you think of what connections you made from that relationship, and then you piece together, you wouldn't know X, Y, Z,
Yeah.
or be in X, Y, Z position if you hadn't have first
Yeah.
been with that person. It's actual madness. So then you start to realise, okay, the silver lining of that really shitty event was all the other things.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, it's true. And
And-
those limiting beliefs that you have about yourself, you know, it could just be that it's from what people when you were younger
100%,
said to you.
yeah.
Because if you believe like, oh, I'm ugly, I'm not right, I'm fat, whatever it was.
I
the
refuse to
reason-
believe stuff like that, by the way.
Exactly. But I think that
I'm
stems,
fabulous.
it could all stem from people who said that
Yeah.
many years ago or made you believe that. And as I just said before, that does not mean it's true. It's
No, it
just from
doesn't.
what you have in your history that's made you believe that that's true.
Yeah, yeah.
Mm.
And I think when I look back at the toxic situations that I've been in my life, what I've actually learned from that is what I want. You know, and I spent a long time after certain relationships not dating. Like I stopped dating completely because I very much felt like until I was healed and healthy, I needed to be in a much better place to welcome somebody into my life.
Mhm.
So then when I started dating again, it was like, okay, sitting in front of somebody, and instead of having that, oh, do you like us? Does this person like us? It's
Yeah,
actually, do I like you? Do you align with
exactly.
my beliefs? Are our values the same? And will you add to my life? And from that, I developed my non-negotiables. So I have boundaries and I have non-negotiables and things that I'm not prepared to sacrifice on, because I know the place you can end up in if you just go, okay, yeah, do you know what? You can just treat me
Yeah, so
however you want.
silver lining of those
100%. So relationships for me now are so much healthier. They have to be healthy, or else I'm not interested in having them in my life.
But if you hadn't learned from them,
I'd
you
still
would
do the
have kept
same
making
toxic
the same
cycle.
mistakes.
I would
So,
say, yeah.
as I said, it's literally understanding what's happened, picking it, which might feel like shit, but then
It
allows
does.
you to overcome that and then progress and
Yeah.
not allow that to happen again. Because
Mm.
otherwise, then it happens again if you don't learn from it.
If you don't break a cycle, you will continue to go through the same again and again and again until you learn, okay, this is not what I want, this is what I want.
Yeah.
What steps do I take to get here from here? And again, it's not a linear process, so you may backtrack, and there will be things that come up where you think, oh, I maybe shouldn't have done that, or I maybe shouldn't have, like, you're human, that is going to happen. But it's just figuring out, this is where I want to get to, what are the steps that I take to get there, how do I embody this person that I want to be, and start to live your life that way.
Perfect.
I'm warm now. There's little insight into my life. The most vulnerable I've ever been.
Well,
So I hope that wasn't too depressing for people, actually, and I hope.
yeah, I'm sure people will be able to relate, like things you've said to events in their life, because everybody's going to have gone through things that's
100%.
affected them. So hopefully that will, yeah,
Yeah.
help someone along the way.
And we'll do a more cheery one next time.
Yeah,
But we
next
don't
time
know
a
what
bit
it
more
is yet.
cheery. We'll work it out.
Actually, it'll be Christmas. We'll do a festive. Let's get Santa hats.
Oh my god, yes, let's do it.
Okay.
Teaser.
Over and out. What is it? That's a wrap. Oh.
Over and out. That's it.